Hey guys, welcome back to the den, you bunch of dorks. My name is Matt, and today I don't have quite a battle report for you. I've got 5 of them. And today I'm just going to take you guys through the Boise Cup list that we played and the 5 different matches that I took on through the tournament. Before we get into the list and the matches, however, I just want to give a gigantic thank you to Aaron Albert and his entire crew that made this entire tournament possible. You guys ran that smooth as it could be, and I could not be more thankful. And of course, we couldn't have a tournament without a play space, and ABU was kind enough to allow us to use their gymnasium. That sounds crazy, but yes, our local game store has a gymnasium in there, which plenty of room to play all the games. So let's go take a look at the Iron Hands list that I actually took to the tournament, and then we'll break down those matches real quick. Alright, well here it is in all its glory. With the recent point changes to the tanks, I was able to take the triple Redemptors, which just sounded way too good to pass up. In the HQ slot, I've got Farios leading as the Warlord, and he has to have Student of History, allowing him to consolidate up to 6 inches, but in any direction. That was a sweet little trick that I got to pull off a few times, although I made sure to tell my opponents, what the Warlord trait did in advance. I also have 2 Primaris Tech Marines. One of them is holding on to the Ironstone. Any Iron Hands players out there, of course, know it's the best relic to take, giving that Duty Eternal to any tank that you choose within 3 inches at the start of a battle round. In the Elite role, as I mentioned, I brought 3 Redemptors, all kitted out the same. I brought Macroplasma, Fragstorm Grenade Launchers, and the Onslaught Cannon, and the Icarus Rocket Pod, along with the D3 plus 3 Damage Fist. This unit was easily my MVP, absolutely in love. For troops, I decided to take 2 sets of 5 heavy intercessors and just 1 normal set of intercessors. The extra wound and toughness actually went further than I thought it was, and I probably would have tried to cut and get that 3rd set as a heavy because they were just absolutely lovely. Loved them. Let's see, lastly here we had the heavy. I got to take a Gladiator Reaper, a Repulsor Executioner, and a set of 5 Hellblasters. Both of the tanks I put every upgrade possible on. The auto launchers though, easily the MVP as far as the upgrades go. Being able to pop smoke on that Reaper and then just put 40 shots with rapid fire into, whatever was the closest unit. Damaging, just absolutely damaging. Let's go take a look at the first round and see how that went. Alright, round 1 pairings were up. I was headed to my seat, and I found myself paired up against Craft Worlds. I was on the mission of Scorched Earth, and for secondaries, I chose Bring It Down, Oath of Moment, and Raise the Banners High. My opponent took Raise the Banners, Psychic Ritual, and Assassination. After deployment was finished and we had rolled off, my opponent did win the die roll in order to go first here. Now, he deployed kind of pretty light in the back, and however, he has a lot of his outflank and kind of off-the-board deep strike shenanigans going on. I wasn't quite sure, what his plan was, but after his first movement phase, he had advanced up pretty far the board, and I was pretty happy to see him getting within range of my gun line. Now, one thing that did happen is he was able to shoot me off of the objective in the beginning, right here in the bottom left corner. But after he got those shots off, I simply walked up with all of my tanks and my Redemptors, started kind of blasting, and I was able to take out a Wave Serpent and a squad of guys after the first turn. On his turn 2, he deployed the rest of his army, came out swinging. We exchanged fire for a turn and a half, but by the end of turn 3, he was basically wiped off the board, and on turn 4, I was able to wipe the rest of his army and sit on the objectives. I ended up scoring 83 points in this match, and I was off to a pretty great start. I couldn't feel happier about my outcome. I was able to, of course, just get my objectives, and I was really proud of how I was doing. I knew this was going to be a sweet tournament. After returning from the lunch break, we all found our seats for round 2, and I sat down against one of my most fun opponents that I had all weekend. Now, my opponent this time was on the army that if you would have asked me, what army do you not want to see, Petra? What army do you not want to play against? I would have said, it's Custodes. I'm playing an elite army. Custodes are great at killing elite armies. I don't have a good track record against Custodes. I just can't beat them. So I was already into my own head going into this round, and I knew that was gonna take a factor, but I tried to clear my head and just play the game. We sat down, and this mission was Battle Lines. I took Oath of Moment, Retrieve Octarius Data, and Vital Ground, which was the mission's secondary. I sat for probably 5 solid minutes, and that doesn't sound like a long time, but I could not figure out what secondaries to take against Custodes. That being said, he went ahead and took Behind Enemy Lines, grind them down, and also took Vital Ground. I took deployment up in the top right corner while my opponent took the deployment down in the bottom left. I tried to deploy as far back as I could. I knew Custodes were going to be coming at me. His list had 3 Contemptors and a Tallyman, and I was just going to say, let's try and sit back and let him come to me. After his first turn deployment and move, it was fairly lackluster with the shots that he got off, and I was fairly hopeful. On my turn 1, I tried to sit back, I didn't move too much, and I was able to go ahead and get some shots off. I took a couple plink shots on a few things, but nothing serious. And turn 2, well, let's just say it's a good thing that Farios wasn't around to see the results of turn 2. After he made his deep strike with 2 Contemptors, made the charge on both of them, and wiped out both a Redemptor and my Reaper, it was not looking good for the home team. I put up a fight, I tried to return fire, I tried to castle up, and I ended up taking out 2 Contemptors, I ended up taking out the Tallyman. However, at the end of the day, I just couldn't deal with all of it, and he ended up winning this game 85 to my 30. After suffering this crushing defeat, I wasn't going to let it get me down. I came to this tournament to have fun, and there were so many beautiful armies that I had plenty of time now to go check out. Not only was there a 40k tournament going on, we also had an AOS tournament, a kill team tournament, a painting challenge. It was amazing. Let's go take a look at some of these other tables real quick. Coming back for the third and final round of day 1, I found myself paired up against Guard. We were playing the Sweep and Clear mission, and for secondaries I took Raise the Banners, Thin Their Ranks, wait, no prisoners, Stranglehold, and my opponent brought Engage in All Fronts, Retrieve Octarius Data, and Mental Interrogation. Wait, Psychic Interrogation? I don't know. You guys know what I'm talking about. This game was amazing. It was quite a bloodbath. We were both doing a ton of shooting. He had 2 Manticores in the back pelting me the entire time that I couldn't do anything about. Between that, a couple of tanks, and just a million infantry, it was almost too much. After both of us got done laying down the barrels, after turn 5, he ended up taking the win with an 88-72 victory. The game was amazing, the company was even better, and if I had an opponent like him every single time, I could play this game every single day for the rest of my life. After returning home and getting a nice long sleep, I came back the next morning refreshed and just ready to get back into the game. I was playing Priority Target, and against this one, I was going against Craft Worlds again. Now, my opponent this time is actually one of my friends that I had played previously just a couple of days before on our exact same lists. Now, I had brought Bring It Down, Grind Them Down, and Raise the Banners, and my opponent, she brought Bring It Down, Engage in All Fronts, and Retrieve Octarius Data. We both deployed kind of far forward in our deployment zones. I figured mine would be a little bit more hard-hitting, and I had the toughness higher than the Eldar, of course, so I was pretty confident going in. After turn 1, however, she got a really good shot off on my Redemptor and was able to actually take that down turn 1 and put multiple wounds into Farios. I knew I was going to have to go on the defensive for a couple of turns and just try to get those units off the board. I ended up turning around, kind of castling and putting myself in the wedge in the bottom middle here. My opponent ended up advancing down the left side of the board harder than on the right side. After a couple of turns of fighting, there was a lot of good shots, a very good warrior bomb came down, and in the end, it was actually a much closer game than I thought, and I ended up losing this match 67-70. The last match was finally here. 2 days had come to an end, and I was going against my final opponent in the Surround and Destroy mission. For this one, I was up against Tyranids, and I gotta say, there was a lot of Tyranids at this tournament, and I was quite surprised to only just run into them. So first up, I brought No Prisoner, Raise the Banner, and Stranglehold, while my opponent chose Engage in All Fronts, Retrieve Octarius Data, and Bring It Down. As you can kind of see in the deployment here, we both just kind of hid a little bit. Now, being Tyranids, you can only hide so much, and I tried to do my best to hide up in this little corner. Now, an interesting part about this terrain setup is in the bottom right corner of this wall, there were no room for my Redemptors or my tanks to actually do that, so I was effectively cut off that entire side. My opponent had 30 gargoyles, and I was terrified of him just flying back there and being able to sit on that objective within 3 inches, because it was within 3. However, after the first turn and him kind of just advancing up the board, he took some pretty good shots and got my Repulsor Executioner down to just a few wounds remaining. With my Executioner only on 5 wounds remaining, I was actually kind of scared that I wasn't going to have the firepower to deal with some of his bigger hitters. Between the Iron Hands counting as having double wounds remaining on bracketing vehicles and using Mercy as weakness, I was, however, able to go ahead and take that Herodule down in a round of shooting with the Repulsor Executioner. It was quite a shot. It was insane. I think I scored like 4 wounds off of my main turret because I rolled boxcars on it. What a time. The next few turns were just kind of him sending units up the board to score rod and engage. I would return fire and mow them down and try to advance a little bit to keep him off and so I could get stranglehold. At the end, after all the dust had settled, this one was a solid victory with an 88-78. It was a well-fought game and I absolutely had fun with my opponent. Again, I can't emphasize, all of my opponents on this tournament were just absolutely the most friendly guys I'd ever talked to. Well, overall, guys, I had an absolute blast going to this tournament. 2 days, 5 matches, all the prep games. I've probably played more 40K in the last week than I have in the last couple months, and I tend to play weekly, so that's saying something. That being said, guys, I have another tournament I'm going to start prepping for, and I happened to win this thing in a raffle over the weekend, which is pretty fitting considered I played Iron Hands. So I'm going to paint this thing up, get it ready, and in 2 weeks, I'm going to take it to another tournament, see what we can do. We'll talk about that list in another video, and I can't wait to see you guys there. Thanks for sticking around, you dorks, and I'll see you next time.